Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video we are continuing on with the Perfect Trio Masterclass series, and we are talking about opaque colors and how they affect our mixing ability. If you are new here and would like to catch up on the rest of the masterclass, I will have a card linked up above for the playlist. If you would like to know the complete list of my brand by brand color recommendations, I have all of them listed in the description box down below. There I will also have my other materials that I recommend for the series if you would like to check them out. Finally, I will also have my Patreon page listed. There you will find a post with all of the resources, printables, class assets, color charts, pigment comparisons, and more for this class. These are completely free and do not require an account. Also, for those of you who are interested in becoming a patron, my Patreon page is where I have the complete real-time tutorials for all of the demo pieces in this series and more. All of my full-length tutorials include the reference images, pencil sketch, color swatches, and my tips, tricks, and techniques for completing each painting. Now, for today's lesson, you can see that I'm working on a pancake stack with fruit. I purposely decided to use a trio that contains an opaque yellow. I've been talking a lot throughout this series about the importance of transparent colors, and I've been very specific each time to single out the yellow. This is because the yellow is often the most problematic color to pick for a trio. They are always the most likely to be opaque, and they can be the hardest to get the color just right for a trio without having multiple pigments. When you first look at this trio, I made sure to pick a perfect magenta and blue color. I wanted to limit the variables to just the yellow pigment and its effect on our mixes. If I were to swatch out this trio without any other information, the first visual impression is that this is a very good trio. The yellow seems to be a very good color match. It has a beautiful bright yellow quality to it when it's diluted, and with a bit of warmth to it in its mass tone. As many of you have noticed, I have chosen to go with a warmer yellow for my trio suggestions, and that is because of its ability to make standard palette colors like stunning everyday greens and vibrant yellows to reds. I thought it was more important to have green colors like green gold, sap green, hooker's green, and phthalo green mixing options than to have unnaturally bright greens that would require more color mixing. This is of course just my preference with a trio palette and the reason I avoid more common choices like PY3. I find transparent warm yellows to be the best trio choice for daily use. However, when we start to look a little bit closer at this yellow, we start to see some pretty glaring issues with it. To start, if we read the pigments listed, you will notice that there are 3 pigments in this color. I will say that while many artists gravitate towards single pigment colors, that multiple pigment mixes aren't necessarily a bad thing overall, and generally there isn't a reason why you should avoid them. Multiple pigment mixes are often great convenience colors that are just nice to have on hand with your palette when you find yourself mixing them frequently. They can also be more boutique colors that granulate and have fun effects. They can also include pigments that aren't often seen on their own due to scarcity or price. These colors can be fun to play with and can add a special textural touch that watercolor is known for. They can also be mixed and played with without creating muddy or dull colors in a lot of cases. If you have had a color with multiple pigments and they are in the same color family, you are not as likely to have as many oddities when color mixing. This is because while the individual pigments may vary slightly in different ways, the color family is still the same. Since the color family is the same, you are mainly relying on the overall paint color to determine how the color will mix. This is oversimplified, and certain variables like opacity can change this, but as a general beginner rule of thumb, it will have to do. The issue is when you have an included pigment that falls outside the color family you are working with. This pigment will act differently because it has a different set of mixing colors and rules than the primary color or pigment does. It will mix differently and it will neutralize differently. If you refer to our color wheel, you can see how the neutralizing color changes as the color shifts around our circle. In this case, our yellow contains 2 other pigments, both in separate color groups. This creates 2 other obstacles to keep in mind while color mixing. The first being an orange pigment. In this case, I don't necessarily mind having a warmer pigment. It helps us have a warmer color and more natural greens. The brown, however, is already a neutralized color. I always like to tell people that you can always take bright colors and neutralize them, but you can't take neutralized colors and mix them to be brighter. That's why when people say that their colors are unnaturally bright, it shouldn't be taken as a con, because you've been given immense mixing capabilities that you wouldn't otherwise have with a more natural or muted color. Since the brown is already a neutral color, you always have to contend with it in mixes. Again, if this color were on a larger palette, it could easily be a go-to for mixing earth tones or muted neutralized colors. However, for a limited color palette, it's just too limiting. If you have missed the lesson on making and using a color wheel, I will have it linked in the cards above. It's a more in-depth lesson for understanding neutralizing colors. I will also link in my bio the post where you can get your own color wheel PDF on Patreon, as well as my mini swatch wheel template to test your own colors, and the template for you to make your own color wheel to use while painting. Again, these are free for anyone to use. Next, we have the issue of opacity. Opaque paints are their own thing with watercolor, and they aren't necessarily bad. Opaque colors can have a uniqueness about them, and they have the ability to change a color in a way that a transparent color couldn't. A very common opaque color is yellow ochre, and it's a very popular color for many artists. It is seen in sets frequently, and is even a palette staple in my own studio. Opaque colors can often get a bad reputation in watercolor because watercolor is known for its luminosity. Yes, watercolor is known for being a transparent medium, and the more transparent the color, the more luminous the painting can be. This doesn't mean that opaque colors are bad though. Many opaque colors, when diluted well, can have a more transparent or luminous look to them. Also, some pigments are just naturally opaque. This has nothing to do with the brand or quality, it is just a natural characteristic of the pigment used to make that color. Opaque colors can become a problem in a limited color palette like we are trying to create. Even a slightly larger palette could easily accommodate an opaque color, but a 3-color palette is the absolute bare minimum. With just 3 colors, we are expecting a lot out of our paints, and we are trying to get the most colors that we can possibly get, and it requires us to have some pretty strict rules in place for selecting our colors. If you would like to know more about how to select a trio, I will have the videos linked for you up above. Opaque colors will ultimately limit our range of mixable values. The opaque color can mute or muddy our mixes, and it becomes especially noticeable when we are trying to get dark colors from our mixes. In my color swatching video, I showed you how to get a full range of earth tones, including black, from our 3 colors. With a transparent palette of colors, this is such an easy task. We can easily shift our color mix between our 3 colors for rich, dark colors and black mixes with ease. It is nearly impossible to get a rich black color from an opaque color in our mix. Think of the opaque color as a cloudy color, almost like how a white pigment clouds a color. This cloudiness shrinks our range of mixable colors to light and middle values and strips our ability to get dark colors almost entirely. Imagine trying to mix black with a white pigment. That white pigment is always going to turn your mix gray. Think of your trio the same way. The opaque color is essentially acting as your white color in this example. It will always want to dull or gray your mix, and you will never get black. Similarly, you will never get that super dark range of values that you were searching for with the trio. In the case of this painting, we could have had really rich, beautiful dark browns and blacks for our shadows had our trio been well balanced. Instead, we have a limited range of browns that leaves us with medium browns for shadows and muted color mixes. I hope this helps you understand the negative impact of having an opaque color in our Perfect Trio palettes. As I've mentioned earlier in this video, this painting could have been made better by simply picking a different yellow. This is not a brand issue, which is why I've decided not to name the brand or specific color in this video. I have used this brand in other paintings, and it is included in my list of recommended trios, but with a yellow that I've tested and found to work properly. This issue can arise with any color that is not selected carefully. This painting could have been better simply by picking a yellow that allows the full color range to be used. It would have made the shadows more believable, it would have allowed for a greater range and depth throughout the piece, and it would have made my job color mixing quicker and easier. If you like this video, I would appreciate it if you would give this video a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you know anyone who might find this video or this free masterclass helpful, to share it with them. These are all quick, easy, and free ways to support my channel, and it helps more than you know. If you are someone who would like to take these courses to the next level, or would like to see more videos, tutorials, and exclusive content, you can do so on my Patreon page. This is a great way to support my channel while also gaining access to full-length tutorials, behind-the-scenes updates, artwork, photos, and more. Again, I will have that linked in the description box for those who are interested in checking it out. I hope you have all enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it helpful. I also hope that this helped you understand your palette a little bit further, and if you've decided to try this project, I would love to see it. I hope you are all having a wonderful day, and I will see you next week. Bye!